Hey guys, my name's Ryan and I bought a school bus to convert into a tiny house. Welcome to my home. To the living room and dining area in my tiny house. The dinette is designed to be able to convert into a bed. You can also use the couch as a bed, and the couch actually folds open and you can make the entire area into like a super king size bed that'll actually sleep 3 grown adults relatively comfortably. Living tiny, storage is always an important concept as well. So under the bench seats for the dinette is a lot of great storage, as well as under the couch's storage. So all the seats flip up, and to make the couch even easier to access, there are hinged doors on the front, so you can access it without having to lift up everything in the cushions. One of the most common questions I get asked is, why did I choose to turn a bus into a tiny house? Personally, for me, it was a product of the pandemic. So I was laid off in 2020 and decided, you know what, I'm gonna switch my lifestyle to a nomadic lifestyle, and decided a school bus would be a fun way to build a tiny house on wheels and allow me to travel. Moving backwards in my bus, we enter into kind of the kitchen and work zone. So I love to cook, and although this is a tiny house, I didn't want a tiny kitchen. So I do have residential size appliances, an oven range combo that works on propane, an apartment size refrigerator, and extra deep double sink. Although, again, it's a tiny lifestyle, you don't have to have everything be tiny sized. My bus, I decided to go with a traditional system for keeping things secure, and they've got these little latches on there. So it's enough that they won't really come out, but you don't have to overpower them to open them. And I've been lucky that nothing has gone where it hasn't supposed to have been while on the road. Everybody's biggest question, how much does a school bus tiny house cost? So because this was a DIY build, I've only got about $22,000 totally invested, which includes the bus, 6 brand new commercial tires, and all my off-grid systems. Adding on to the kitchen, storage is another big thing, so I took my drawer slides from where the sink are and incorporated that into my pantry. So it makes it very easy to access things, and again, when we're moving around, these ones just have drop latches so that they don't come bouncing out. At some point, this will get cabinetry to match the rest of my blue. Another thing that people don't think about when they are designing is where you're gonna deal with trash and recycling. So I do have a residential pull-out like anyone else. And then tucked back here, I also have my instant hot water heater. So this is a ventless hot water heater that runs on propane, and it's all on demand, so there's no pilot light. It'll ignite when I need it and stay cool when I don't. Personally, while traveling, my goal is to hit all of the continental United States, as well as try to hit as many national parks as I can. So I really like to be in locations where I can hike or bike and be outside more than I'm actually inside my tiny house. For my power on board, I've got 1,400 watts of solar on my roof, and I've got 3 lead acid batteries to keep me running whenever the sun isn't out. So this is enough to get me by for now. I do have plans to upgrade this in the future, but I highly recommend solar as a power source because I like to say that it's quiet energy and you don't have to listen to a generator to be able to enjoy all of your electricity. So in the closet, there's a lot of additional storage. These are blue pine handmade drawer faces that my father and I worked on, and it's again additional food storage or just common household items. These also have those same latches like the rest of the cabinets, and that keeps these drawers secured when you're driving. A couple of the things that I would do differently if I were to do this again, and this is just learning from the road, I would actually move my refrigerator to the driver's side, and that may sound odd, but as you're driving down the road, usually the passenger side is a little bit rougher if you're along the edge of the road. So I've noticed it's bounced the fridge around more, where if it was on the driver's side, it would most likely be a smoother ride. In addition to that, I would move my desk from the driver's side to the passenger side, because most of the places I've parked, the view is actually on the passenger side of the bus. So while I'm working, I could take in the view of Lake Michigan as opposed to looking at a sand dune like I did last summer. If the barn door slides, then we know it is not level. So one of the nice things about doing a bus over a van or a smaller vehicle is the added benefit of a bathroom. So I decided to do a full wet bath with tile, as well as a composting toilet as a DIY. So this allows me to be able to go anywhere with my 100 gallons of water on board and still be able to maintain my regular hygiene schedule. Traveling, I did design my bus to accommodate friends and family on the road with me, but for the majority of the time I am a solo traveler. So there are times where people ask, do you ever get lonely or is it ever boring? And the reality is sometimes you do feel a little bit isolated while you're traveling, but it's all of the events and getting to see people on the road that really make it worth it. So attending events like swarms and festivals are really the highlight of my traveling journey. In the rear of my bus is the main bedroom area. So back here I've got a queen size bed as well as a built-in headboard with extra storage in there. Under my bed is kind of like my garage, so I've got my water storage, my tools, things like that, as well as some built-in storage for clothing. On my right-hand side here, I've got the dresser, an additional entertainment TV, and then of course, a bus isn't complete without a 3D printer on board as well. One of the things that I lucked out with a Florida school bus is I've got 2 air conditioners that came factory with it, and because they both function, I decided to leave them in. So while I'm driving, I have the ability to cool it rapidly, or I can idle the engine and drop it about 35 degrees in a half hour. The worst thing that has happened so far on bus life is last summer I was in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, had just pulled into a campsite after driving for about 3 hours, was scoping things out, and my low air warning went on. And I was a little shocked at what was going on. So it was supposed to be a 1-night stay at this campground, which turned into a 4-night stay. And I was able to reach out to Mike and Carrie from Bussy McBusface, and Mike was able to walk me through what to troubleshoot with my air brakes, and ultimately learned that I had a split O-ring in my purge valve. Luckily, I was able to make some friends in the campground who had a tow vehicle since I don't have one. But recently with my new Flaunt e-bike, that would have been the perfect solution to get me to the nearest Napa Auto Parts to buy those parts and back and not have to rely on somebody else and getting there. Obviously with this being a school bus, you have to have a spot to drive it. So up here is the cockpit of my bus, and whenever I'm parked, it really just becomes kind of a spot for coats and other things to get it out of the way, because it's really not used when you're sitting still. Because I'm in a school bus, I don't really have the ability to tow a vehicle, so instead I get around on this Flaunt Vehicles e-bike, which has about a 40-mile range, and whenever I'm exploring a new town, it's a great way to be able to get around, leave the bus parked, and the best part is, because it's an e-bike, I can charge it off of my solar system on board the bus as well. My favorite spot that I've been with my Skoolie is in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, in the Keweenaw Peninsula. There is a town called Copper Harbor that has a great little campground that's fully off-grid boondocking. There's no cell service, and it is one of the most relaxing places to go up to. And they're also known very much for their biking trails. So I'm looking forward to this summer taking my Flaunt bike up there and hitting some of the mountain biking trails and getting to explore more of Copper Harbor by bike and leave the bus parked. Again, storage is ever important in a tiny space, so under my bed here is what I consider my garage. So right now I've got a big tent that normally slides in there. It's up because we're at an event, but I've got all my hand tools, my power tools, and it makes it easy to access it all from the side of the bus. So because I've got my bus set up for boondocking, I've got a 100-gallon water tank tucked back here, as well as my water pump and accumulator, so if I ever need to service it, it's easily accessible from my back door. Everybody always wants to know, how can you afford to travel and how do you make money on the road? So part of my business is seeking discovery and the social media that goes with it, but I'm what's considered a digital nomad, so I leverage the internet to run an online business so that I can work from anywhere that I have service. So for me, I'm the kind of person that needs a dedicated workspace or I will get distracted and do other things. And so I've got a dual monitor setup, which is great on the road. And again, my office can be anywhere. Sometimes it's the beach, sometimes it's the forest, and sometimes it's a Walmart parking lot. Even though I am equipped for boondocking at most points, if I ever want to plug in, I do have a 50-amp inlet here. And whenever it's time to fill water, I've got my water inlet or a city water if I'm in a campground or something like that. And of course, whenever you use stuff, you have your gray water. So back here, I do have my dump valve as well whenever I need to empty my wastewater tank. Interested in learning more about kind of my bus life adventures, I'm on all of your major social medias at Seeking Discovery, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, or you can check me out on my website, seekingdiscovery.com.